chance of thunderstorms. And then tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, 81 degrees projected high for all 3 days. Some sun, some clouds, and a chance of some showers and maybe even a storm or two. There you go. All right, let's talk to Bob Pollock on this Friday morning. The extension here in Indiana. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, voted best personal injury law firm in the Best of Indiana County contest. Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. And Bob joins us this morning. You can give us a call at 479-1160 or 349-WCCS if you have a question about your lawn, your garden, your plants, whatever it happens to be. We talked a week or so ago, probably 2 or 3 weeks, about what to do when a tree has a branch come down and you got to get that baby cleaned up. One of the main trunk lines coming off of the main trunk went down on one of my big old maple trees. Huge thing, about 40, 50 feet long and very, 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 very thick. So that was 4 hours of last Saturday morning with the chainsaw trying to get that baby taken care of. The part that was left, I have about maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet of that branch left, and then that's where I sawed it off. I don't need to do anything. I know people used to paint those then, with the idea that they were preventing harm to the tree by painting over that wound. But that's not really what you should do, right?
No, it's cosmetic. Mm-hmm. The painting.
But we're not going to harm
Especially,
it by doing
and it's not as noticeable. It just makes it less noticeable. Mm-hmm. So on lighter barked trees, and usually that inner wood, that heartwood, is lighter colored anyhow, so they would paint over that just to make it less noticeable. Mm-hmm. And maybe felt that it would help heal that tree or something, but it's just painting, and it doesn't really aid in that process for that tree to grow new cells, new wood, and wall that off, as they say, that wound. Anytime we have to cut off a branch like that, that's a wound. We open that tree. Before, when there was a limb there, everything was completely covered with bark, whether it was very young bark or very old bark. And so that's that tree's defense. It protects it against invaders. And when that gets snapped off, as it did in a storm, or whether we cut it off, that opens an entry point for whether it's fungi, bacteria, wildlife, insects, to start working at that. It exposes that tree.
So the tree actually will heal itself. We're not harming it by painting it over, are we?
No. In most cases, as long as we don't want to use oil-based paints or anything like that. Typically, those paints were just either like some of them could be a little bit tacky, but they're more of a latex type paint, which won't harm that. In fact, fruit trees, we will latex paint the bottom trunk of the tree, especially on peach trees, sometimes on younger apple trees, because that white paint reflects light, which can then help protect that tree from sun scald.
Yeah. Crabgrass season is here. Boy, crabgrass season is here. And, people certainly have noticed that. And treating for crabgrass, actually, that should have been done already.
Yes.
Before the crabgrass started to emerge, right?
Correct. Yeah, most of those materials work preventatively. So we have to have them down. We have to have that barrier there. So when the seed starts to germinate, the chemical's there to kill that germinating seedling. If we miss that, there are a couple post-emergent products that can be used, but you've got to read the label. It needs to say post-emergent crabgrass control. So that will work if you have some patches of that you want to control and keep it from going to seed, because it will regerminate. We're having plenty of, we're warm enough, the soil's warm enough. It's a summer annual grass, so it it likes warmer weather and it needs that moisture to germinate. So these conditions are pretty perfect for it to go to work.
So when we and we say it quite often, this should be treated before something emerges. At this time of the year, if we're wanting to prevent future growth, it's not quite time that we need to think about that. Should we wait until the end of the growing season, I guess is the question.
Well, really, we want to time. So any application of those pre-emergent materials, it has a limit on its lifespan because it will break down. So Mother Nature will break it down over time. So we need to time it as close as possible to when that seed will germinate. So it won't, it's going to regerminate now until we get hard freezes, and then it'll die and turn brown. And then those seeds will overwinter, and they will not germinate again until next spring. And usually it's later spring, not early spring, later spring, because, again, the air temperatures aren't warm enough. The soil temperatures especially aren't warm enough for it to germinate. So, we mostly don't really see it till June. Going into July, is really when it
dandelions being the one exception.
Oh, well, yeah, because they're a completely different beast. They're a broadleafed plant, and of course the crabgrass it's a grass, and it's a warm season annual grass, versus our cool season perennial grasses that we use for our turf. Now we can sow some seed mixtures will have annual ryegrass in them, but that's basically there because those annual ryegrass will germinate in a few days when conditions are right, and so that they'll put that in that seed mix just because of that. We need something that will quickly germinate and start to grow grass and hold the soil in place until the like Kentucky bluegrass and fescues, which might take 2 or 3 weeks to germinate, can do so, and then they'll eventually take over.
We had an item earlier this week, came from one of our prep services, that was talking about how to mow the patterns into your yard. Like when you go to the ballpark and they've got these wonderful, beautiful patterns in their grass, and it was telling us how to do that. And they said that one of the difficulties in creating that kind of a pattern, in particular they're talking about striping it, was that a lot of the grasses today come with more than one variety of grass in it, and that more than one variety of grass is going to have more than one color of grass blade when it comes up. So getting the stripes is a little bit more difficult because of that. But there's a reason that there are mixed types of seeds in most grass seeds that you're buying right now. You can buy all bluegrass or pure whatever kind of grass it is that you're wanting. But the mix is there for a reason, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So each one of those has its own positive and negative characteristics. And so by combining those together, especially against pests, insects, diseases, they all have various susceptibilities, or if we look at the other side of the coin, resistance to various insects and diseases. And so by combining those together, as well as little bit different cultural conditions. So one species might hold up a little bit better in drier weather. Another species will do better in more shady conditions. And so by combining those together, and especially where all those places intersect or overlap those conditions, then we increase our chances of having a successful turf by doing so. When we rely just on one variety of one species, then that really ups the ante and our risk and our liability.
When it gets sick, then the whole lawn gets sick.
Right. You can lose the whole thing, overnight, especially to disease. So that's why we do that, and it works pretty well. And you can get it, and you do get variability because not each one has the same width of blade. Not everyone grows at the same rate, and that's where we can get into a lot of variability. If you combine some of those together that have a real broad, like Kentucky 31 tall fescue has a real broad blade. Mm-hmm. And so that can really, it's a coarser texture. And if you try to combine that with Kentucky bluegrass, which has a very fine blade, you may not like the results of that.
I was wondering about this a few weeks ago as I was riding the mower. And when somebody lets their grass grow extra long and it starts to form those seed heads, and then that seed obviously will fall off, is that actually good for the lawn? Because it's creating more seed and,
right.
and maybe filling in some of the spots and making a thicker lawn in the end.
Yeah, as long as those seed can mature, that's right. They'll drop to the ground, and there's a good chance that those will germinate and help thicken things up and may limit or the need to overseed or, patch things up later on. Yeah. Definitely.
So we should let that happen. We should let it get to about 2 or 3 feet and then so it creates lots of seed.
Then, you can make hay off of that. And
there you go.
Our turf grasses are not really designed to let them do that. Forage grasses that we make into hay and silage. Those are bred and can handle that. Mm-hmm. Those cuttings. We cut them 2 or 3, maybe 4 times a year, and we let them grow until they start to form seed. At least get seed heads on there many times, and then, those are mowed and baled and processed.
Were you at Ag Progress Days this week?
I was not there this week, but hey.
They had them anyway.
They had them anyway.
They had them without
That's
you.
That's right. They did it without me.
Here comes fair season, too.
Fair season is coming. We'll just mention, usually we have a few people that are interested in late blight.
You got late news.
Nothing new to report in Pennsylvania. There are a couple reports in New York and up into Canada, but nothing in Pennsylvania at this point. But with all the weather conditions we're having, these fronts coming through,
spray them in.
That increase absolutely, because septoria leaf blight, early blight, late blight, all those things. Most of our tomato varieties are susceptible to that.
And they could literally strike overnight.
And so they can, and of course, early blight, septoria leaf spot, those things over winter here, they're around. They never really leave. Mm-hmm. So our plants are always susceptible to that. So late blight, though, is one that typically it has to have a host to overwinter on. And so it typically is coming in on a front from somewhere else that has it. And that's how it arrives, and then we go from there.
All righty. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, WCCSradio.com. Fox News up next at the top of the hour, and then Jake Slobodnik in the newsroom.
This is Dave Reed, Regional President from First Commonwealth Bank. Through the years, we've built some amazing relationships with small business owners who trust us